Hi, and welcome to Rich Show. We're so excited that we have another amazing guest. We're also very excited because we're giving away Exit Rich books. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're giving away Exit Rich books for anyone that asks a question or gives a really, really phenomenal comment about something that Sheila Mac says today. We will send you an Exit Rich book. So we want those questions for Sheila Mac. We want those comments. We want it all. We want to have a real conversation with you, the audience. So let me tell you about my special guest, Sheila Mac. Sheila Mac is a respected motivational speaker, business coach, and author with over 20 years of experience as a consultant. Now, listen up, my real estate people, real estate investor, and team building expert. She is known as the reboot specialist. How many of us need some rebooting? I can tell you I do. I can tell you many of my clients do, and my entire audience probably needs a reboot, right? I always say, when your computer's full and you got all these apps open, what happens? Well, think about your brain. When you have all this stuff going on and you have all these things, personal business, in your brain, and you don't start closing the cycles. I always say you have to close the cycles. When you don't close the cycles, what happens? Your brain shuts down just like your computer shuts down. It gets late. It starts running really slow, right, Sheila? It runs really slow. It gets tired. It is not at its operative speed. It's not productive. It's not efficient. Same thing with our computer. So you need a reboot specialist. You have her, ladies and gentlemen. Sheila hosts the Sheila Mac Show, and she's featured on NBC's KCAA radio, on demand television, and major podcast channels. And she's here today. Her work has gained recognition from CNBC, CBS, Fox News, Yahoo Finance, and other media outlets. Her best selling book. Now, I love this title. I don't know why I didn't think of this. It really makes me angry right now. No, I'm just joking. But Boots and Bra Straps. Boots and Bra Straps. And we're going to dig in a little bit into her book to find out what is Boots and Bra Straps all about. Boots and Bra Straps, what a great title. And she serves as a guide for, in which it serves as a guide for improving the lives of people, business owners, professionals, everyone, right? Improves their lives and the lives of our us busy entrepreneurs. So Sheila, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here, and let's dig in.
All right. Thank you for having me as a guest today.
You're welcome. So I'm glad you could come on. I know that you're busy between my schedule and your schedule. You finally got a schedule. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a treat. So, let's talk a little bit about your journey. I always like to start with my guest journey because we all started from somewhere, right? What you see Sheila Mac as today is probably not the Sheila Mac as a little girl. And I know, Sheila, you faced some really significant adversities in your life, as many of us have, but you've faced some really significant ones, which you managed to overcome and build a very successful career. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Oh my goodness. Wow. How much time do you have? So
We have
I
an hour, but we
that's
got 12 questions. No, we have an hour and a half, five
That's right.
questions.
So, as a young girl, I was with grandparents mostly, and then in and out of homeless and foster care. I emancipated at 15 and a half and went ahead and started college early. I graduated high school early. By the time I was 18, I worked at JPL in the engineering department programming, and on the weekends, I went ahead and I worked at the swap meet selling things that I bought on sale at the storage and different auctions, garage sales. Then after that, I realized I was making more money doing that. So I was able to invest in my first triplex at 19. And by 23 years old, I started department gift stores that were 5,000 square feet. And my first store, I leased, I paid rent, and I didn't like paying $5,000 a month. That's a lot of money.
And how old were you at that time?
23. By then I
23.
was 23, right.
Pause, all my listeners. If you have any 23-year-olds laying on your couch or kids, get them off the couch. Any 23-year-olds listeners saying, I can't do it, I can't do it, I don't know how to become an entrepreneur. You just heard it from Sheila Mac herself. 23. Go ahead.
Yes. So then I my heart was really to give back to the community. So I did start an open source learning program for at-risk youth. I worked with the government Job Training Partnership Act, and I had over 200 young adults go through my training program, learning every aspect of working at a store. And then from there, they would graduate, get a letter of recommendation, and they would go on to get really good job paying jobs because no one wanted to hire these kids when they started. So they were my heart project. And with that, my store grew. And
Mm.
I started consulting before I knew it was called consulting. The other store owners wanted to know how I was making so much more money than they were and what I was doing. And the next thing you know, when it was finally time, I started buying my other retail businesses, the actual store frontages. And when I bought them, that's when I got into real estate because all the other store owners wanted to also own their building. And it just made sense. And so that's how I kind of transitioned into real estate. However, I was already consulting as well. And I didn't even know what it was called. I was so young. That's just what I was doing. So I had a great time. And years later, I had the stores 17 years. I ended up doing an exit rich strategy, kind of like in your book. And I was able to sell out. And then because I had purchased the buildings, I also was able to rent those out. They were fully, bless you, they were fully paid for. And so therefore, I was able to get passive income and stop working many hours a day, which was a wonderful treat. Yep.
So we're going to dig into that story with some questions we're going
Yes.
to ask, and our listeners, remember anyone who posts questions, comments, that I read on air will also receive an exit rich copy. And if Sheila wants to throw in a boots and bra straps book, she can do that too.
Yes. Definitely.
So, all right. So just to go back, you're raised by your grandparents, and just kind of unpack your story a little bit. You were raised by your grandparents and out of a foster home. Why was that?
Well, they weren't all that well, and so at one point my mother had returned and kind of told me to go out on my own, and there was some abuse going on at home, so I definitely was safer out there, and I was still going to school full time. I was, oh my goodness, class president. I was a cheerleader, and I was homeless, and so I
So
had
wait,
to.
you got to stop. You got to pause right there.
Yep.
So your grandparents were ill. Your mom
Yep.
came back. So your mom really wasn't a big part of your life.
She was on and off, and there was a lot of abuse in the home overall, mostly with her, not with me. And then I'd end up getting hit in the middle. So they kind of beat my mother up a lot. And so
Oh wow.
I, yeah, so for my safety, she wanted me to go. And I literally negotiated staying at different friends' homes. Sometimes I was out all night, just awake out in Hollywood and California, Southern California. You could do that back then pretty safely. And I was still going to school, getting good grades. And years later, at 13 and a half, I found out there was this foster care. And I went into a group home. And
At
I was
what age?
from,
13 and a half.
yeah, so 10 and a half to 13 and a half, I was out kind of on my own. And I did work for a program called Junior Careers, selling candies door to door and at the stadium, sports stadium. And so that was how I ended up paying for things. And then I just stay at different friends' homes.
Mhm.
And foster care, I went to a beautiful home called David and Margaret Home in Laverne, California. It was a group home, and there I had a wonderful experience. I ended up knocking on the door of the people that bought the old orphanage, and these were the Whipples, Weston Whipples. So it was Pamela and Michael Whipple, Weston, Pamela Weston Whipple. And so I got to see her do her architecture for the Weston hotels. And he had art in, I think it was Carter, in the Carter White House. And he also was the artist that did the dragon in the Never Ending Story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had knocked on their door. They bought the old orphanage. I knocked on their door. It was probably the first week in foster care. And I said, I want to be your personal assistant. And they hired me and they trained me in so many different things on running their, made it into an art gallery, their whole place they had purchased. And so I helped with the art gallery and events. And so they were teaching me. I was their apprentice,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned a lot about business. They were so kind to me, very
They
wonderful.
paying you a little bit of a lower rate because they were
Oh, they
teaching.
didn't pay me anything.
Oh, they didn't pay you. Okay, let's make that point very clear because I have a lot of people that come in and sell their tucker and want to make a tremendous amount of money right off the bat without zero experience and think they're worth it.
Right,
uh, and really, can't validate why they're worth it. And, I always tell people, look, if you really want to learn, you go into a company as an intern, you go in a
mm,
company maybe charging less, you go charging less so you can be a sponge and soak it all up and not
right.
think you know everything. So I get a lot of those candidates that want to get overpaid for lack of experience.
Yes, yes. So I got to stay at their home, at the mansion on the weekends. I had a special pass with David and Margaret, so I had permission. They went through whatever paperwork they needed to. And so they were where I went for my home passes. And they did, I had a nice room. They gave me clothes here and there, nice things because I had to dress up for the events. So they took care of me very well that in that respect. And it was all training and learning how to earn money. One time there was dental equipment that we had to, somebody had given dental equipment for art. I had to figure out how to convert that into money for them. There was just so many different business deals that I was involved with and learned from this beautiful couple. And so that was such a gift. They later separated, they got divorced and moved away. And that was when I was 15. And so that at that point, I decided I wanted to be famous. So I got the, how kids are in California. So I got in line at this Janice Patterson talent agency, and there were hundreds of young girls in line, and it was for the Dove commercial. And I was chosen.
You
However,
were a Dove girl?
no, I wasn't. And this is
Uh-oh.
why. And this is why I
Chosen by
emancipated. I was chosen. I didn't even have a portfolio. I didn't know what a portfolio was. I just had really good skin. And I looked the part that they wanted. And so I didn't get the Dove Girl commercial. However, and the reason was my grandparents were still my legal guardians.
Mhm.
And with that, they would have to sign for me to have permission to go ahead and do that commercial, and they didn't want to sign. And so
Why?
that's why, whatever reason, they hadn't sent a card, a hello, goodbye, nothing in all those years. So, I said, well, they're not really helping me. I will emancipate so that I don't miss any other opportunities. And that's why I emancipated at 15. I got my high school diploma early and started college right away.
At
And
16? You start
at
college at 16?
15 and a half, and
Too
and
young.
that was, oh my gosh, and they put me in a different place. They actually sent me to camp because they said, "Well, you're emancipating, so we want to make room for these other people. We're going to transfer you. Do you want to go to the hall or do you want to go to camp?" Now, I had been working, going to school, good grades. I was like very different. And so I was like, camp sounds fun. And this was a camp for really bad kids that had hurt other children or done something very bad. So I'm like in camp, and they kept me there 6 months. So that's, and I finally at 15 and a half is when I finally graduated. So I started emancipation at 15, and it took the 6 months, and I thought,
So
what an
who sent you
escape.
to the camp?
Well, it was part of the foster care. I was in the system, so it was the system's. idea for emancipation. And so I'm in the camp with the really bad kids, but it was a beautiful experience because I got to learn these who these kids are, what their stories were, what caused them to do the crazy things they did, what was going on, and I really felt it was an important part of my experience in life. And to really know people, it gave me a lot of compassion. And it did motivate me to later, when I had the gift stores, work with the at risk youth and be able to create that training program to help them get back on track.
So that's an amazing story and even more to unpack, but we can't do it in a 1 hour show. However, that question that comes to the top of mind is, where did you find your strength? Where did you find your motivation? Because there are children that are raised in very good homes with
Right?
families, and they do nothing with their life and they don't really contribute to society. And or even those who have had bad upbringings or challenging upbringings or challenging neighborhoods, etc. What where do you find that strength? Where do you find that power, that passion? Why are you different? Why did you end up so different from that background where so many don't? Where so
I
many end up
think
on the street, in jail, etc.
I feel like maybe I was a really old soul. I was around grandparents and their friends. So all these, I had so many grandparents, extended family grandparents, and they were teaching me these incredible values. So I remember my grandmother sitting around having tea with a large group of women, and they would come together once or twice a week from the neighborhood, and they would go ahead and talk about their stories and their difficult situations, how one of my neighbors had escaped from a concentration camp. Another one had escaped from Iran, and when they changed power and they had nothing and they came to this country, and all the different stories. From They were very multicultural because we're in Los Angeles area, in the suburbs. So
Huh.
you have people from everywhere and their stories. One lady from Greece and how she had to start over and had the most popular Greek restaurant. And I said, "Oh, my goodness, I'm going to have my own story one day." And that's part of life. Things are going to happen. And I get to choose
They
how I
can
want
say it on the
to
show,
live.
shit happens.
Yes. It really
And so,
does.
but you're an anomaly because there are more people who don't succeed that have had challenging background childhoods than
Right.
people who do succeed. So, what is that key ingredient that you think people need to get past their past? Not let their past define them, not let their past control the rest of their life, not blame everybody else for their mistakes.
Yeah.
What is that one key ingredient, or is there one key ingredient?
I think the key ingredient is ownership. When
Owner.
you own your piece of the problem or your part in changing it, then at that point, that's when you're in charge.
Yep.
If you blame others, my parents did this, my this happened, a terrible thing. Yeah, things happen in
Or
life.
in business,
Terrible
my
things
coworker
happen.
did this, so that was
Right.
that person's
But
fault.
if I blame those circumstances for what I'm creating in my life every day, then who has control over my life? Me or those circumstances?
The circumstances.
That's right. So that was something I was like, you have to take your power in your life back and decide that this is how you're going to reinvent your life if you've gone through a tough situation. And being able to be in the girls' home and then in the mansion with these incredible people at their art gallery, it was like, which world do I want to live in? How
Yeah,
do
and
I
it's
want
almost
to? Yeah.
yeah, and it's almost like you can kind of go back now, and Sheila, and ask yourself, instead of what the victim always asks themselves, why does this happen to me? Why does this happen to me? Why does this happen to me? Why did this happen for me?
Yes.
For me. And you can look at all the blessings that came out of you being in that foster home
Hmm.
and really, say, oh my God, if this didn't happen, if my mom was more involved, if this happened, if that happened, if that happened, I would have never met this person. I would have never had this. I would have never had this great life. I mean, Tony Robbins does the same thing. Why
Yes.
does this happen for me, not to me? So people have to get out of that victim mentality. So I need to transition your
Mhm.
journey into where you are today. So how have those experiences really influenced your approach to business and your work with your clients?
Well, I think that because of my experience, I have a lot of different work experience, life experience, and compassion. And so
Amen.
I'm able to read between the lines a lot of time. And working with businesses and business owners, especially, you have times where the business is running them. And when I finish helping with that business side of things, then the other things show up, like the husband or wife comes in and says, hey, I'm being ignored, or we have no relationship anymore, or the kids, or whatever's going on, because they were just running the business that was running them. And so that's a very common situation that happens. And then I get to do the other side of coaching and help work those things out, because the whole reason we work isn't to just work until we die. It's
Right.
so that we can bless our relationships, help our children or our elders or our loved ones, or pay for our puppy and whatever they need. It's not really just to work. Of course, we love helping our clients, but if we're not getting any benefit and it's just burning us out, what's the point?
Yeah. And that's where, business owners have to learn to work on their business, not in it. And um, employees need to learn how to leave their baggage at home and be focused in their
Yes.
job. And so they can be more efficient, more productive. And when I do get home, they can have a better quality of life. I just lost my husband 6 months ago, and I'm balancing work and being a single mom now and
Yeah.
still having fun. And so, I'm pretty good at balancing, but it is something that entrepreneurs really, really, really have to focus on. So let's talk about the boots formula. Do you have a bra formula too, or just the boots?
So it's the boot formula with bootstraps and bra straps, and it's the formula to get from rock bottom back into action in any situation.
Uh huh.
And so it is definitely, um, later on in life, I had purchased a home after I did travel with the Tony Group, and had a blast for about 7 years,
Yeah, I
and
love Tony
mostly
Robbins.
living off my all my properties and passive income. So I was able to learn more strategic intervention and consulting, and just have a blast. And I brought my kids with me on some of the tours. We had so much fun. And so I had finally decided I'm kind of tired of traveling full time. Let me buy a home. I bought a beautiful home in Ventura. And about a month after I had redesigned it and we had barely moved in, the house burned down with the big Ventura fire, the California fire.
Oh my.
And so we lost the house, the car, the cat. My daughter ended up having to go somewhere else for school and not live with me for a
Oh.
while, go to the dorms. And so I was really upset about that.
Was this
And
like one of the wildfires that spread in
it was
California?
the Thomas fire, which
Okay.
was part of the electrical system that went bad. So there was a big, um, it took years to actually get that taken care of.
That's devastating. How did you
It
bounce
was.
back from that?
And, I had a little rental home. It was a prefab home. I paid pennies for 35,000, and I was getting 6 to 8,000 a month renting out this little prefab home on Woolsey Canyon. And I was a super host, so I stayed in the 400 square foot, like, I guess, utility closet that had a bathroom. And I was staying there. I didn't really want to go to the shelter and take up space. I had a place. And I ended up getting one of my kids gave me their car, loaned me their car that was really driving almost sideways. It had an alignment issue. They, my son owed more on that car than it was worth. Like, I had to pay money to get out of it, and the brakes didn't work, so I had to have it repaired. I fixed it up as nice as I could and rented other cars to show my clients in real estate, uh, working at Keller Williams Beverly Hills. So, of course, I was renting really nice cars, but then I had the sideways driving, literally had the rolling down the window, the thing that, the handle. It was not the best car. And so I made it the best I could. And I jumped up and down on my rebounder, out on the yoga deck, I called it, up at that little house. And I just had a blast. I really did. So
So you
that was,
completely changed your mindset and you got out of the victim mentality
that's right.
and
I,
you
you
got,
know, and had gratitude. And I said, I'm going to put all this training to the test. Let me see if I can get out of this and rebuild my life. And that's exactly what happened.
wow. So
Yeah.
how has this system really helped your clients succeed in business?
So it is something that we always start with because they need to get back to basics. So it's really who you're being and all you're doing. Are you being run by your business, or are you in charge of the business? And then it's really the next thing is the order of operations. So you have to see what's first, next, and go from that. And you have to have your orientation also as to where are you on the map. Really, you can't say you're making tons of money if you're not, or if you're losing money, or or if everything is great in your business and your whole life is falling apart. And so we do that to really understand the orientation. Then we do the order of operations, and then it's a lot about mindset,
Yeah.
and the S is stepping into all that you need to do, taking those action steps to make the change. And that could take 3 months, 6 months. It's usually not immediate because you're taking small steps each
Mhm.
day. Yeah,
1,000%. We have a coaching program called the Road to Exit Rich. And I always say, you can't, you can't better the business. You can't improve the business unless you improve the owner. The
that's right.
business is going to be stuck if the owner is stuck. And I have partners and other in other businesses, and I always work on the owner first.
Right,
Always
right,
work on the partners first, so we can get those businesses unstuck, so we can actually grow the business. Because if the owner has a mindset, like in the case of one of my companies, that, hey, I'm stuck here, I'm never going to exit for millions like I want, because her story is always like, people want to get paid by the hour, they want their paycheck every week, they want to work for the dollar, they live paycheck to paycheck. I said, well, here's some books we need to read to get them out of that mindset. She goes, but I think that way
right.
too. I said, well, there's a problem.
That's right.
So you'll never change the owner of the business beyond what you can change the owner. And so we've got
Exactly.
some comments. I've got more questions, but we got some
Oh, very
comments.
good. I'm plugging in this computer. Hang on.
Where'd
There
you
we go.
go?
Yes, I'm here.
We
Okay.
are live. We are live.
Yes.
All right. So, um, Coach Kenny said this is great information, really great information, great story, fabulous story. Matt asked, what are some of the key strategies you recommend for individuals aiming to create generational wealth, especially for those who are just starting out in their careers or business?
Okay. Yes. So for that, I can't really say that enough about how wonderful it is to invest properly in for me it was real estate. And when you have a business, that was one big thing, whether you can invest in, if you have a storefront in your site there, or if you can invest in, instead of having the fancy home first, go ahead and have a duplex, triplex, fourplex, start getting the cash flow to pay for your mortgage, pay that off, and then buy the next one. There's also the 1031 exchange, which is once you start having investment properties, you don't have to pay capital gains, and you can size up and build up as you go. So it starts basically with building your credit, building and using business credit. Whoa, if you're in business, use your business credit. Don't use your personal credit, because that will give you a lot more leverage. And for my storefronts, I actually used some business credit in order to make my down payments, and I paid my buildings off in 3 to 5 years. So that was my goal.
So
And
there
and
was,
that gave me the income. Yep.
yeah, so there was a lot in that answer. You know, now I wanted to unpack some of that. Number one, you don't want to use your personal credit for business because now
Yep.
you've pierced the corporate veil. So if you can avoid signing personal guarantees and avoid, using your personal money for business, you avoid piercing that veil. You don't want to pierce that company veil because then you're opening up your own a personal estate to lawsuits. So you got to be
Yes.
very careful with that. And it's kind of like Robert Kiyosaki says in Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know, don't go out there and buy an expensive home or expensive car or expensive boat. Take that money and buy cash producing properties.
Mm-hmm.
Come see us at Siler Tucker. We have lots and lots of cash producing properties, but you want to go out there and invest that money in different things. Like, people used to do it in the vending machines, and now people are doing it in the air machine. What do you call those things? The air machines. I don't know the technical name, but where you fill up your battery operated cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so there's lots of things that are cash producing revenue sources that you can invest in. Then you take that money and invest it into a home. And that's still an incredible book to read is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes.
Um, Stefan says, how can professionals overcome obstacles and break the glass ceiling in their careers? And what mindset or approach should they adopt?
Okay, so that is to be different in a good way, add value in a good way, and a
He said in a
wonderful
good way. Be different in a good
in
way.
a good way. That's the important part.
That's
Yes.
key. So my team, go put that in the comments. Be different, but in a good way, because there's so many people who are
Yes.
different in a really bad con way.
Yes. Yes.
There's
Exactly.
there's a lot of cons out there, so we have to be careful. But be
So,
different in a good way. Go ahead.
yes, and tune into Jay Abraham. He has some wonderful marketing ideas for cross collaboration in different fields. That's like being creative in a good way to create new clients and business to business also. And he does that so incredibly well. So I highly recommend watching some of his YouTube as well.
And say that person's name again.
Jay Abraham.
I love Jay Abraham. I know Jay Abraham. I think we should call him and patch him in here.
Yes,
Call
right.
his cell phone number. Love Jay Abraham. So if we could put Jay Abraham in the comments team to go listen to Jay Abraham's content. I will tell you, when you're listening to Jay Abraham, get ready to drink out of a fire hose because it's
Mhm.
that fast and that powerful. And I've never heard anybody speak as profoundly and as quickly as he does, and he has a tremendous amount of experience. And so Kimberly says, what are your key strategies for getting out of debt and starting to build a nest egg?
Okay. So there's different, I mean, you can only cut so much. This is, and right now with inflation, there's not a lot left to cut sometimes when I'm working with a new client. And so it may be that you have to roll up your sleeves and do the second job or create the side business that's going to bring you some extra income. You need to have more than one stream of income, especially in this crazy economy. Even if you have a successful business, start getting something else coming in from somewhere because that's going to help you to get ahead. If you just have, whether it's a career or a business, and you're not getting that extra or the backup, then it's a little difficult when you're starting out to get out of debt. And if you do have a business, that's when you can start, once you start having some success, look into the business credit instead of using your personal credit. I don't know how many small businesses that I've worked with never even heard of business credit. And they're like, they mortgage their house to buy for their retail store. I
I
was like, what are you doing?
A lot
Yeah.
of businesses that I coach or into the exit rich strategies or partner with, that's one company I partnered with. They were husband and wife were working 12 hours, 14 hours a day, one employee,
Oh yeah.
and had no business credit, mortgaged their home, and were about to get a divorce and about to lose their family home. So
Mm-hmm.
I came in and invested money along with another partner and saved their family home and saved their marriage. So it's very important to have that business credit. It's also, I'll piggyback onto that, Sheila, is
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to have for business owners to have multiple streams of revenue. And in my book, we talk about the 6 P's, the second P being product. And I always say, look, this is why restaurants got destroyed
Mm-hmm.
during COVID, is because they have one way to get paid.
Right.
You either go in and dine or you take food to go. Where's the retail end of the business? Where's maybe the cooking classes of the business? There's so
Mhm.
many different synergistic opportunities in every single industry that business owners should really look at, and even go outside your industry and look at other industries and what are they doing? What are some of the revenue streams that still could be congruent to your business? Because I always say you shouldn't add revenue streams unless they're congruent. Um,
Exactly.
you don't want to own a restaurant and then go own a landscape company. you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
so it needs to be. You could own maybe a food distribution company because that's more synergistic. So you have. I always say, Sheila, a business owner should have 4 to 7 profit centers in their business
Right.
all
Right.
the time. So I
Yes.
agree. And then same thing with employees. There's a way for them to build wealth too.
Mhm.
They can build wealth through their employment if there's opportunities. Like we make sure there's commissions and bonuses and stock and all these different things that we are working towards. And then they can go and take some of those bonuses, commissions, and invest them into passive income. And then she can have
Definitely.
multiple revenue streams.
Yes.
All
So
right.
true.
Hayden says, what practical steps can someone take today to start their journey towards financial freedom? How can one balance the pursuit of, financial independence with maintaining a fulfilling social life? Well, I think we'd already said a bunch of that. You have anything to add?
Yes, yes. I think that the other thing is somehow to connect your social life with your business, not that you're a salesperson. I mean, I went out every night. When I'm in Beverly Hills, we go out 7 days a week. There's always something to do in Beverly Hills, let me tell you. And it's networking, it's business, but it's not to sell to each other. It's just that you're networking with different people. And so just like with my stores, it's the people would be like, well, I want to do what you're doing. How did you buy this property? What did you do? And then it's like, well, yeah, I happen to be an agent and I happen to walk people through the steps of going from beginning to going ahead and building a portfolio that way. And so that's something I do, but it's more like it just comes up in conversation. So you can be social that way. I don't really drink. I don't go out to play. I mean, I'll dance around and if we're at a fun place with music or whatever, but really I am there to network with people that are aligned, that have the same values as I do, and most of them are building and creating incredible things.
And
So
for
it's
you,
peer
that's
group.
fun. That's
Mhm.
fun. That's
That
so
yeah, that is fun.
That's fun.
So
It doesn't feel like work to you. So
no,
everybody has to find what their balance is. And
right,
there's so many different chapters and organizations and groups to network. We're in New Orleans. There's
right.
lots of things, to network here. And so there's so many different things that you can do and balance work,
Hmm.
balance, networking, work with your owners too, and make sure you're getting compensated for your efforts as well.
Hmm.
You bring in some new business that you're compensated for that. And so I've always found it very easy to balance my my businesses along with my social life, going to fundraisers, going to different communities, going to different nonprofits, different charitable events. And for me, that's all fun. They usually have a band, they have dancing, they have this, they have that. And so it's very social. So to me, it's pretty, connected. But everybody has to find their own, I believe. So, business success, one of my questions, what do you believe are the key factors that contribute to the success of a business? And how do these factors align with the principles you teach in your consulting work?
I think that the most important thing in running my stores and in all the businesses working with my clients now is everybody's royalty. All the clients, my employees, they're all royalty to me. That means that it doesn't matter if somebody would walk in and not spend a penny or at my stores, that was my rule. And you treat
That they're all
everybody
what? They're all royalty?
everybody is treated equally and fairly. So I would not treat a client or somebody that's buying their first time little home. I wouldn't treat them any different than somebody that's buying $18 million property. So to me, it's like everybody needs to be treated with honor, with respect, and with your full focus. And when you train your employees to also treat all the clients that way, and you also honor and treat your employees in a way where they can give feedback. We had wonderful times where we'd have our lunches or breakfast and everybody would get to contribute. There was no mistakes. What idea do you have? Maybe we should do a new display. Maybe there's a different way. How do we work with this client? What do we need? And everybody, you would be surprised. Some of the people that I hired in, I didn't realize they were very creative and they could do beautiful displays. But if I just kept them in their job and I didn't listen to what their whole person, then I would miss a beautiful opportunity. And those displays sold, 100 times more than my displays prior. And so that kind of thing is just being open and being really connected to the people in your life. It's people first. Richard Branson believes that too. He always says that. And I think that that's really the key.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to not judge a book by its cover because there are stories after stories after stories where multi-billionaires walk into a car dealership or a store or a bank or this or that, and they're treated very unfairly. They are pretty much, neglected. The salesperson in many cases will just, say, oh, da, 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 let me put you with this person and walk away.
Mhm.
And there was a recent story about a billionaire walking into a car dealership and they completely ignored him. He went to another car dealership, bought a car. They treated him much better. Came back and says, "Okay, let me tell you who I am now,
Right,
and let me
right.
tell you what I bought. Do you work on commissions? Kind of like in Pretty Woman. Remember the
Yes.
remember the scene in Pretty Woman? Do you work
Yes,
on the movie
right.
Pretty Woman? Do you work on commissions? Big mistake. Huge, huge mistake. And so you can never judge a book by its cover. And so I agree 1,000% that everybody should be treated fairly and like royalty. Let's put that in the comments. Everyone should be treated royalty. Don't judge a book by its cover. And so let's talk a little bit about leadership. As a leadership coach, what core qualities do you believe are essential for successful leadership in today's dynamic and ever challenging business environment? Not just challenging, but changing.
It
Change.
is. Yes. Yes, it is changing. And the most important thing I've found in leadership is making it fun. That sounds crazy, but it doesn't matter. If it's a boring meeting, if it's an OSHA safety training meeting, which is about as boring as it gets, if you can bring a little bit of fun in and involvement and get people to not just sit and listen, but to be able to respond and make it a game, make it fun. This is where people actually they're looking forward to going to work, to be on the team, to be connected. When you create leadership within each other in the group, you're not just the leader, the only leader. Everybody is involved. That's when that involvement, it's not you're not just sitting there listening to somebody tell you what to do. You're becoming involved in it and making it fun. And it's not just putting food on the table at a meeting, it's actually getting people involved and creating time for synergistic relationships and discussions so that people are actually looking forward to going to work, where it's actually a fun part of the day instead of I'm working to get this money and then I'm going to go have fun.
Yeah.
So bring that back, and you can make a lot more money when people are happy and having fun.
Yeah, and when people are learning, because
Yes.
a lot of times it's not always about the money. When you ask people what their top five priorities are in a new position, money is usually number four and number five, and
Hmm.
usually right up there is um, the ability to learn and to grow with the company.
Yes.
And usually that's at the top. So, one thing that we started incorporating again, we used to use do this all the time. A lot of business owners have great habits that they got away from, or they did great stuff that they stopped doing. And one of the things we bought back is the book. We pick a book that we're going to read per month, and then everybody reads it, everybody comments on it, everybody gives their ideas. We have worksheets with it, and then we figure out how they can incorporate it in their life so they can become wealthy, so
Hmm.
they can give back to their community, so they can serve on other boards.
Right. Very good. Love that.
And so then Matt asks, with your diverse educational background, how have these different fields such as business marketing, um, teaching, Montessori teaching. Because you did Montessori teaching?
I did. I adopted 3 children and have 3 of my own, and I because I had this diverse group of children in my life, some of them came to the home and they needed different learning styles. And so I went ahead and got my degree in Montessori teaching. And at that point, my stores were already self-running, and and so I did check in with that, but I went and became a Montessori teacher so I could get the children all into the private Montessori schools that they needed to catch up. And I
Wow.
was there teaching, so I was there to be mom and to know who the friends are, who what are they doing, what do they need. And the pay was like nothing, but the reason I was there was to be with my children. And the biggest part was the private school let all the children in free because I was a teacher there. And so that was I was making more of a bonus because it was like 35,000 per kid at this particular school. And that's a lot with 6. I don't care how much you're making. And so that was a blessing. And the kids, it was only a couple of years that my children were in that program. And I worked in that because I wanted to be with my children, but they got really caught up and then they were able to go back into traditional school. And so that was something that was for my children.
Wow, you are
Yes.
fascinating. I didn't even know that about
Yeah.
you. You're
I
a
have so
Montessori
many
teacher.
secrets.
Kudos to Matt there because I didn't know and I would have never asked that question. And then also real estate and consulting. How has all of
Yes.
that, a bag of chips,
Right.
contributed to your approach to business coaching?
So really, whatever business you're in, marketing is the most important part.
Okay.
Whether you're a real estate agent and you're marketing to get clients and leads, whether you have a business, even if you are working at a business and you want to improve and maybe market yourself to get a better paying job at another company, it's all marketing. And so, no matter what you want to do for your marketing, we're marketing books. If you write a book, you've got to market the book. If you have a movie, you've got to market it. So really that is the most important thing that I've learned over the years is marketing, sales and marketing. But really if you market correctly, it practically sells itself. So that is something.
100%. Look how many people create inventions and never market and never go
Right.
to the market and end up with all those inventions in a box. You know?
Mhm.
So absolutely. And I did not know that you've adopted 3 children.
Yes, yes. So that was a beautiful. I had one child, and then I was told, well, you can't have any more children. And I said, well, I came from this foster care, and there's so many children that need adoption. So I'll sign up. And the next thing you know, I adopted 3. And then I had the surprise where I had my last 2 children, biological, and and I was like, doctor, excuse me, I thought you told me this was an impossibility, and now there's 2 more. and and so they were really, I say it's a soul contract that they
Mhm.
were part of the family and that was designed that way. I really believe that. And it's been a wonderful experience and a way to learn
Wow,
about.
6 kids.
Yes, yes. And
And
they're
you
all
do all of this with 6 kids. What's the
I
youngest? How old's the youngest?
Oh, my youngest is sadly the one that passed away.
Oh, oh,
He passed away in 2019 when he was 22. He had a heart condition
oh.
called Wolf Parkinson White. Since he was in 5th grade, we had diagnosed that, and he fell asleep and didn't wake up. And so that was really hard for us. I dedicated my book to my son Michael's memory, and so that was a tough. That was probably the hardest of all the things in my life. Whew, that was the hardest ever. And so and I'm not alone. I'm with a group of moms that I do a free program with, and we meet once a week
Mhm.
and talk about the process. So it is something that sometimes you have to go through. And my daughter's now the youngest living, and she is 27
Mhm.
now. So getting her degree in psychology. She did a mentorship with me, learning with Chloe Madonis, and it was a private mentorship with Chloe for 9 months, a small group, and she got high recommendations from Chloe, and she is studying psychology. She's now a caseworker and finishing her degrees in licensing still.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you are quite extraordinary. The more you talk, the more I learn, the more
Oh,
I find
thank you.
out about you. All right, work-life integration. I think we've already talked about this. You emphasize the importance of integrating career and life, kind of like you did with the Montessori schools. You want
Yes.
to be near your children, so you got a degree as a Montessori teacher. And then, can you give us some really practical advice on how busy entrepreneurs and business professionals can achieve a healthy work-life balance? I think we really already talked about that, where you got the social functions, that you're networking and that's good for you. And I do the same thing, and that's good for me. I also plan my time, in my office now, now that I'm a single mom,
Right.
accordingly to what I have to get done in my daughter's life and spending quality time with my daughter. So,
Hmm.
do you have any other tips on that?
I had an entire section in my department stores. Remember, I had five that was devoted to knowledge and games. And my kids actually ordered the merchandise and would come on the weekends and show people how they were learning while they were playing games. And we would sell all the parents and grandparents would buy. My children were learning about business. I actually involved them in a lot of what I did.
Yeah.
And they were having fun. They didn't even know they were working, and we'd make it a game and a challenge. And they all know a lot about business and went into management roles when they got their first jobs at 18 because they already knew how to run a business. And I felt that that education was far better than the school education, in that area, at
Yes.
least. And so it has really blessed them, and we've always been very open and honest and had great talks every night. We have like a a phone call now, but when they were little, it used to be obviously our reading circle, and then we'd have like a talking time, and we would share about our day, and to know what your kids are doing these days
Yeah.
and what's going on. Are they having problems, peer pressure, what's happening, and to really have open discussions from a young age on, so that when you get to the tough things that happen, they can still have open discussions with you because that's just normal.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. And I agree it's so fun to play with your kids. I mean, I have tickle games and play horsey games and all kinds of different games, because play is so important in a child's life. And I agree. And also teaching them entrepreneur skills, teaching them about money when they're very little. But I like to incorporate that play with
Yeah.
some hands-on experience about going to the bank, and this is what we do. This is what mommy does on when
Mhm.
mommy sells companies and stuff like that. But I think it's imperative to incorporate play.
Right.
And some adults, parents don't really understand that or get that, comprehend that.
Oh, yes, and talking about incorporating play as grown-ups, whether it's a relationship or
You
just in your
gotta
life,
have play, even in the
don't
workspace.
stop. That's right, don't stop. If you love to go play sports or horseback riding or swimming, don't ever stop that, because even as a parent, your children need to see you having fun. If you like to sing or dance, whatever it is, bring your family along or have them involved and let them see you having fun too. It's not all about work. And if you make it
Absolutely. My
fun,
daughter and
it
I play
yeah,
tennis every Saturday. I
beautiful.
was going horseback riding with her, but it really scares me to be up on that horse and fall.
Yeah, I hear you.
Really
I hear you
get a
on
bad
that.
piece of it, but everything else I do with her. Even some gymnastics I do with her. Steph has a question. As a new homeowner, how can I strategically use my home to invest in other properties? What advice would you give to those considering real estate investment for the first time?
Okay. So, as a new homeowner, you have to, first of all, is your house serving you or are you serving your house? Are you still in debt service or have you paid that off? where are you with the house? Because there's different options. If you have enough equity, you can use that, working with certain mortgage companies, and go ahead and start a second investment. That would be usually at least a few doors, duplex, triplex, fourplex, is much better than single family homes for cash flow. And
You can even
then,
buy a duplex,
yeah,
live in one of them, and then have the rest coming in as income paying for
yeah.
your home.
Exactly, that's better, but if you need to have that home because you have kids and elders or whoever's in there that you're caring for, and you need that space, then the other the other investment, the other tenants will qualify as part of your qualifying to get the mortgage. So if you're renting out 3 units and living in one, when you buy for yourself, if you're able to do that, you're not just going to need your job salary or your business income. You'll be able to use the income from those rents of the other 2 or 3 units as part of your qualification to actually get that loan to get into that duplex, triplex, fourplex. And so up to the 4 units. And so that's a wonderful strategy. In fact, my daughter's saving up to do that now. So her first place will be, we're looking at triplexes and fourplexes now, so she can live in 1 unit, qualify as a first time home buyer with her income as caseworker, and then also the income of the renters that have already been in there is going to qualify her, and she'll be able to build equity instead of paying somebody rent.
That's great advice. 1000% agree. So retail. Are you still in retail?
To a certain extent, and I work with a lot of small retail, here and there, because I had a lot of success in retail. I don't do it full time.
But it's changed dramatically, right?
It
So
really has,
so
but
what
the
advice do you have for all those retail brick and mortar businesses? What advice do you have for them? Because I know they're listening too.
so if you still have a retail store that people go to, this is a time. So having diversification, being able to cross promote is so important. Some of the things, I worked with restaurants nearby, and they would provide, like the tea and the little samples, and then we would send them, like a certificate, and they would go have a dinner or another day, and we would do that kind of thing. I also worked with a lot of musicians, so that I had on the weekends, we had like a musician come in and play nice music at the store and stay open, connect to the other stores, restaurants, especially if you are a retail store and you've got restaurants open. I stayed open until 10 and 11 p.m. All the other stores would close at 5 or 6.
Leaving
And,
money on the table, leaving money on the table. People
and
like
I
to go to
was,
a restaurant, they like to
yeah,
have a cocktail, they like to shop.
and I was the young upstart, that the older, most people were double my age, close to that, and they were like, "Who's this young upstart? Who does she think she is?" I had my first store, and all my stores were next to restaurants, and I would collaborate with the restaurants and promote them, and they would promote me. And and then I'd have the little band playing, and I'd have different people. Sometimes it would be somebody presenting on a product, in the store, and make it interesting so that it's more of a community event or something to go to. I had books, I had a reading section, so you could have. So it depends what you sell. Maybe if it's clothing, you have a fashion show, some kind of event that's regular events, that's more than just I'm just going to go buy something. And then you become part of the community, and you're giving
Agree.
back.
And people love to get back to the community. Most people do.
Mhm.
And you have to be different, just like we talked about earlier. You really have to set yourself apart from everybody else, and you have to create an experience.
Yeah.
Especially this younger generation now is looking for more of an experience than they are for looking to just go buy something. And so the
Right.
more you can create an experience and connect the community, and even if it's to also a nonprofit organization, the more successful I think that and relevant that retailer will
Mhm.
be. And then you also, I believe that you have to have a strong e-commerce presence too.
Oh, yes,
You can't
definitely
just be
now.
all brick and mortar. You have to have a
Right.
strong e-commerce presence.
Yes, and reach out, branch out. My gosh, I had cruise ships, and I my top selling fragrance was Crabtree and Evelyn, and we outsold them all their own stores. We'd get trips to London, and so for that particular section, the cruise ships bought from us, and we were the ones that connected. And then I also was able to source all kinds of merchandise. So my first store was in Montrose, California, and there's all the entertainment industry.
There's so
And
many opportunities all
yeah,
around us, don't you think, Sheila? And I think a
yeah,
lot of people are just walking around, just in their own zone or in their fog. I always say when it's foggy, when you're in your fog, it's foggy,
right.
and they don't see all the opportunities around them. Now, some of us entrepreneurs see too many opportunities, and we're like squirrel, 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 and we have to try to focus. Kimberly asks, how do you recommend business leaders and parents navigate through times of personal crisis while also trying to manage their business? Now, we talked a little bit about your huge personal crisis, my crisis with losing my husband, and how did you navigate and manage your business and run your companies? Because I can tell you how I did it, but go ahead. I want to hear you.
Well, fortunately, during those times, I had already built systems, trained my employees, and really had things in check. So if I needed to not be present for a little bit, things were still running quite well. And so if you can create systems and have things automated but be able to check, and this is important for business whether you have a crisis or not, just so you can go have fun. But life is going to happen. We're going to have different seasons in life. We're going to have losses. We're going to have divorce or marriage or
Or
new
losing
babies.
our loved ones. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's going to happen in life. If you live long enough, you get all those. And so when you set up your systems properly, the more you can systematize without being like a system, but you know what I mean? That's going to help so that you have that leeway and train your employees so that they're able to step in for you. I had incredible, I just lost my original store manager, Lori, a year ago, and we have been friends for all that time. Remember, I met her when I was 23, and she was probably early 50s when she started working for me. And so she said, I can't believe I have a 23-year-old boss. And she was incredible as a manager. I got her from
I
Nordstrom's.
handle that, but that's
I got
great.
her. Yeah, I got her from Nordstrom. She was a manager at the store, but she had a degree in social work, so she helped with my at-risk youth kids, and she was perfect, great at sales, and great at working with my kids. And whenever something came up, and I needed to be with my family, she would take over, and that was perfect because she was trained to do everything I did.
Wow. So, and you have to have those systems, those processes in order, and you have to have good people, but you also have to you have to have self awareness, and you have to have, really have those systems and be able to separate what has happened when you also are in business. That's employees, that's business owners, that's everybody. You got to be able to try to separate departmentalize that while you're at work, while you're running your business, while you're an employee, etc. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Oh, yes. I lost my
Well,
father
to the
when I had my
workplace
gift
every
stores.
day.
Yeah, I lost my father when I had my gift stores, and he was very young. And so I would literally take the grieving off and put it down for a moment and work. And I think it was work therapy. And then I would be able to go grieve on my own time, but I actually needed the break from grieving to just be with other people and
Yeah,
work and have a sense of normalcy. And it was part of my healing process. If I had nothing to do all day, that would have been really bad for me.
I
So
agree.
it was healthier that way. And so that's another thing,
Yeah,
definitely.
but you have to be strong enough, tough enough, and you just gotta be able to know this isn't good for you to grieve all day. And
Yeah.
I would say with my husband recently passing, I've never cried in the workplace. I never, you know, bought my grieving here. I too need the distraction because sometimes a minute before I got here, right after this happened, I would do my grieving, do my crying. The minute I leave, I do my grieving and do my crying, but I
Yeah.
don't do it here, you know.
Right.
And this is my break from grieving, and everybody has to be able to separate
That's
their
right.
personal from their business, their
Yes.
personal from their job, and very,
Yes.
very, very important. Um, One thing that Hayden asked on a different note, I know we're kind of all over the place, but I love these questions that are coming in. Could you share a few examples of how you treat your clients like royalty?
Okay, so yes, so I did with my at-risk youth that was working with me that I was training. I had to show we had the 20-pound camcorder to
Uh,
film, and I would turn everything into the government to show my training. We would go on field trips to the mall, and I would have them go buy something at a store, and I would say, "Now you see how that that employee treated you like dirt? Now let's go to Nordstrom's. Let's go to one of the top stores where they treat everybody really well.
yeah,
And they literally package everything beautifully and they carry the bag around to the other side and they give it to you in a certain way and they thank you. Doesn't matter if you spent a few bucks or, a whole bunch. And I said, that's what I want. And how did you feel differently? And so that was how I did my training with real life, and of course I was working with younger people that needed that, and I had fun. It was a fun outing, but they got it real fast when somebody didn't treat them right.
yeah,
And it came down to even the music, the environment based on your client, how you're going to we had clients that were mostly probably 50 plus. So we played classic music and we played fun music that was from their time. And the kids wanted to listen to their music. And I was like, we don't ever do that here. I
yeah,
might listen to that. I was their age and I wasn't that much old. I listened to the fun music and go to the concert still. But there's a where you're honoring what your client needs and what's going to really facilitate their comfort.
yeah. It's about their needs, not yours.
Hmm.
And it's important to figure out what those needs are very quickly. And I always call it creating the wow experience. And the wow experience, I'll just give you a couple examples. Dr. Needle Cobain, who sits on the board of Lazy Boy and sits on uh, Great Harvest Bread Company. Forgive me if I said the wrong name, y'all. But he sits on a bunch of different boards, and he is the president of High Point University. He came to this country not speaking any English and went to high school and taught himself how to speak English on index cards. But now, as the president of High Point University, he has a director of WOW and a director of UnWow. So when students come, he does an intake and he asks them, "What's your favorite food? What's your favorite drink? What's your favorite hobby? What's your favorite book? What your favorite music, etc." And he's got a list on all their favorites because unwells will happen.
Right.
But how do you respond? How do you respond? Because you should never react, you should respond. How do you respond to those unwells? And so, just an example, he had one of the students was very upset because the shower was broken and wanted to take a shower before they went to class. And within an hour, the handyman was there fixing the shower. And before he even came back to his dorm, because I knew his class schedule, before he
Hmm.
even came back to his dorm, they had that huge basket with all of his favorite things.
Right. Nice.
The men, the boys were stealing underwear and bras out of the girls' washer and dryer. So then they went and put a little GPS or whatever you want to call it. So every time the washer is done or the dryer is done, then they get notified and they can go remove their laundry right away before the boys steal the girls' belongings, personal belongings.
Oh,
And
wow.
so he is a director of WOW and a director of UnWOW. I'll give you one WOW for me. And this
Uh-huh.
is when you really go out of your way, Hayden, to create these wow experiences. And I was headed to a conference in Los Angeles, and I'm from Long Beach, California, but I was headed to a conference in Los Angeles. And I'm like, oh my God, I told my husband, I forgot my business cards. I forgot my business cards. I'm speaking in front of 1,000 people. And the driver from the limo company said, "Oh, how many business cards do you need?" And I
Nice.
said, "Probably about 1,000 to 1,500." He's like, "When do you need them by?" I said, "Tomorrow morning." He says, "You'll have them tonight."
Beautiful.
We shipped over everything needed. He delivered those to my hotel. He delivered 2,000 and didn't charge me a penny.
Wonderful.
That's
That's
an wow. That's how you treat clients like royalty.
exactly. Yes.
So this has been a great interview. I think I got to most of the questions. If I skipped over some, my apologies. But we can't keep Sheila Mac forever. She's got more wows to create. And so, Sheila, before we leave, tell us about bootstraps and bra straps. Interesting name for a book. How'd you come up with that title?
So, my first job was at 2.5 when I went to live with my grandparents, and they had clothing manufacturing company. They did Catalina Sportswear, El Capitan, and so I would go into the factory at 2 and 3 years old every day, and there's 200 employees. And grandma made bras. So by the time and swimsuits, like very famous people wore the swimsuits on in the entertainment industry. And so when I finally got to school, I think it was first grade, my teacher, I told her, you really could use a new bra. And so I sold the teacher a new bra. My grandma was like, she had a conference with grandma, and the next day she came in with a new bra. And so that's the bra straps, and bootstraps is bootstrapping and rebuilding your life. And so I had to bring in the bra. The bra's on the cover. And so it goes into that story and different stories, not just about my life, but clients that I've worked with. And basically, it's about life. It's about life and all the different seasons that we go through in life. We do have career, finances, business, but there's also grieving, getting over a situation where you're going through grief. There's relationships. There's a relationship with your parents as elders, and then there's also the relationship with your young adult children who your relationship shifts, and how to have those important conversations. It has lots of activities and ways to really help you. The last chapter is where you lifestyle design, and that's where you're reinventing your life after whatever situation just happened, and how to get back on track. And this time you're reinventing the life that you've always wanted on your terms. And that's the whole point of the book.
I love it. So where can people get bootstraps, bra straps?
Okay,
Bootstraps,
so
bra.
that's I have my website, SheilaMac.com. Also, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and just about anywhere you buy books. It's also on Audible.
Wonderful. And so where can people listen to this Sheila Mac show?
Okay, so there, the show you can listen on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you go to kcaaradio.com, there, my show is on daily for the morning commute, and then Tuesday afternoons at 1 p.m. as well.
So you are phenomenal. You are extraordinary. I really love getting to interview you and find out all about Sheila Mac. And I'm sure there's a lot more we haven't unpacked, but and that rhymed. And so, any last minute, really good golden nuggets that you can leave for other business entrepreneurs, just people going through grief, people, anything that you want to leave with our listeners.
Okay, so when I went through my tough times in life, I had created this mantra after the house fire, and it was, in all I'm doing, it's who I'm being, it's how I show up, whether I'm working with clients, I'm walking my puppy, cleaning my house, or having fun with family and friends. It's who I'm being and how I show up that's going to make a difference in the outcomes in my life. And
Amen. Can we get that in the comments, team? Who say it again, Sheila?
in all I'm doing, it's who I am being. And it's whether I'm walking my puppy or working with
Yeah.
clients, cleaning my house, having fun with family and friends. It's how I'm showing up that will create the outcomes that I desire.
So, and who I'm doing, and all that
All
I'm
I'm
doing is
doing,
how I
it's who
show up.
I'm being. And
And
that's
all
the
I'm doing
first,
is who I'm being. Let's get that in
and
the
that's,
comments, team.
yes, and that's the first B in the Boots formula. So that's the being. It's how you're showing up, and how do you need to show up to get the results that you desire.
Okay, one more time so my team can get it in there. Just the
Okay.
first part. All I'm being.
Being, being. In all I'm doing, it's who I'm being and how I show up.
Wonderful. All right. And with that, what's next for you?
Well, I am working with many clients and I do lead online training programs for real estate agents who actually have never invested. They're great agents per se, but they haven't invested. So I teach them how to invest. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now, full time, with the different agencies. And I am now creating a course, a mastermind course, where I teach everyday people how to start from your first investment, or if you're moving on to multiple investments, and how to start building that passive income through property investments, as part of your strategy, your business exit strategy in life.
Wonderful. I can't wait to be on your show, Sheila.
Yes, thank you. And you'll be on very soon. I look forward to having you as a guest. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Well, you're a wonderful, fabulous guest. Lots of words of wisdom on so many different things, on career, on balance, on, getting past grief or any other trauma that you've had in your life, and how Sheila grew up and really became her own power and didn't live in the past. She created her own future. She was a producer of her own movie. She was a director and a producer, and she is 1,000% enjoying her outcome. I know she is. All right, Sheila.
Thank you.
So thank you. And thanks
Thank
again
you
for all
again.
my
Thank you.
guests. You're welcome. Thanks to all my guests of joining and listening to another episode of Exit Rich. I know you've enjoyed Sheila Mac as much as I've done. Make sure you go out and purchase her book. Make sure you go out and listen to her show. I'll be on soon. And in addition to that, I know you love this content. Go and share it with your network. Go share it with your social media followers. Go and share it with anybody you know that's grieving or that's gone through trauma or that's really trying to get past their past and, really become their future. Share it. Share it with everybody that you know. The more people we can help, the better our world becomes. And I'll see you next Wednesday on another episode of Exit Rich.